This is our last Sunday, actually, to talk about our theme, which has been summer reading. And I've taken 2 books that had been on my summer reading list. I had been on my reading list, I should say, and I decided I wanted to get them read so I could bring them to you and we could talk about them. So the two books that we've done this month are Living Big by Pam Grout. We did that the first 2 Sundays. And then last week and today, we are doing this book. Thank you, Roger Webb, for introducing me to this book, by Gabriel Bernstein. It's called, the full name of the book, which I love, is The Universe Has Your Back, How to Feel Safe and Trust Your Life No Matter What. Last week we explored it. We'll explore it again today. But I just want to take a moment to acknowledge a demonstration of The Universe Has Your Back. Mine personally, and then us as a community. Last Tuesday evening, our amazing spiritual life coaches held a peace vigil here, and I want to acknowledge Pete. Wearing, Pete, would you stand up so we can love on you? Thank you so much for organizing that. Thank you, thank you. Susan Peacock. Susan, are you here this morning? She might be watching. Susan, if you're watching online, thank you for that altar that you created. It was amazing. And Jean Martin, who was her able-bodied assistant, who helped put that together. And all of the SLCs who did readings, who came here, who held consciousness for that incredible evening. And it was. And I couldn't be here. I had a commitment that I had made a long time ago that involved a whole bunch of other people for Tuesday night, and so I couldn't be here. But it was so nice to know that our SLCs had my back, and our back. So give them a hand. Thank you all so much. Thank you. And had the back of our community, bigger than CLF, of our Phoenix community, as all sorts of other things were happening that night. So I'm so happy that we had that vigil here. So today we're going to dig into 2 spiritual truths that come out of this book, The Universe Has Your Back. Every chapter in this book, and obviously we haven't talked about the whole book and won't be able to, but every chapter just has an amazing title, and it delves into spiritual truths. So the 2 chapters that we're looking at today, the 2 concepts really are these. Obstacles are detours in the right direction. Obstacles are detours in the right direction. And number 2, the universe speaks in mysterious ways. Right? So we may sit here and think, yeah, I got that. Yes, I say yes to obstacles are detours in the right direction. I know that, yes. We sit here this morning and we say yes to that. We think about the idea of the universe speaking to us in mysterious ways, meaning ways we don't get, things we don't understand. We don't see the significance of it. And here this morning we sit and go, yeah, that's right. I get it. Ernest Holmes gives us some great wisdom, some great counsel all throughout the Science of Mind textbook, but specifically on page 51, he says this. It is easy to rush around shouting that there are no sick people, but this will never heal those who appear to be sick. It is easy to proclaim that there are no needy. Anyone can say this, whether he be wise or otherwise. But if we are to prove such statements to be facts in our experience, we shall be compelled to do more than announce a principle, no matter how true it may be. So we need to do more than just say, oh yeah, I got it. Detours or obstacles are just detours in the right direction. Yeah, I got it. Oh yeah, I got it. Universe speaks in ways I don't understand. Yeah, I got it. We need to do more than just give that lip service, if you will. We need to embody it. We need to live it. We need to breathe it. We need to know it with capital K-N-O-W. We need to walk it, not just talk it. And we need to do that when, in fact, we are in the middle of a detour. Not when things are going fine. When things are going fine, it's easy to go, oh, I understand. Sure, detours, oh, yeah, obstacles, they're just detours in the right direction. Oh, yeah, I might not understand right now, but mysterious God is working. It's easy to say that when life is going well. It's when we're facing the obstacle. Does that make sense? It's when we don't get it. We don't get the message that we're getting. We don't understand why this is happening. Those are the moments where it matters more than ever, more than anything, that we live, that we embody, that we know, that we walk this talk. And that's why spiritual community is so important, because we uphold each other and help each other and hold each other's hand while we walk through stuff that can be scary. This morning, in a group this size, there's got to be somebody. I know there's some percentage of people this morning walking through stuff that's scary. There's an obstacle that right now you can't possibly see how that's just a detour taking you in the right direction. There's something going on in your life where you're like, I can't imagine how that's some divine message. That's just, ugh. We're here to help you see that, to hold your hand in that, to point you in the right direction, or just to love on you and let you cry on our shoulders. Whatever it is that you need. That's why we are here. I want to give you a couple of examples of this idea and how it really does work. One of the things that Gabriel Bernstein says in her book is that, do you have stories of your own life of when you have seen an obstacle and realized, probably hindsight, but you've realized that it really was just sending you off in the right direction. It looked like an obstacle, but it really was just a detour to get you in the right direction. Or a time where you didn't understand a message you were getting, or you didn't understand why something was happening, and then you got it. The light bulb went off. Do you have your own stories of how that's happened in your life? Because if you do, then you can go back to those times and go, oh yeah, that's right. When you're facing something in the moment, you can go back to that time and go, oh yes, I remember. I am always guided. I know that obstacle is here for a reason. It's sending me in the right direction. I know that. But if you don't have your own story, maybe you're new on this path, you haven't had enough experience, well then grab onto somebody else's. Use someone else's. So I'm going to give you two personal stories this morning that if you don't have your own, you can grab onto, or maybe you don't think you have your own, but you do. You've just forgotten, and these two stories will stimulate your remembering. So they're personal stories. The first one is about me. The second one is about my husband, who's not here, so I can, talk all I want about him because he's not here. As you know, I would do it even if he were sitting right here. I do it all the time. I'm very often inspired in the moment to share a story about him that I hadn't planned and therefore hadn't asked him. So I will start it with, Lonnie, I'm looking at him, he's sitting there. Is it okay if I share this story? He, of course, has no idea what I'm about to share, but he just looks at me and smiles and says, yeah, sure, go ahead. So the first story is my life before I became a minister. I was coming to First Church of Religious Science. I loved it. It had changed my life. I had met Lonnie. We'd gotten married. Life is good. Life was good. I had left my corporate job for a job that gave me a more heart-based, more purpose-driven reason. I was working for a nonprofit supporting homeless, low-income families get back on their feet by raising money and recruiting volunteers. And so life was good. And there was just, it wasn't quite there. And I went to see my therapist, who was, I've mentioned her many times. Those of you who have been around for 5 minutes or longer have heard about Marilyn. Marilyn was very spiritual. Now, I had a little tiny nudging in the back of my head. Anybody ever have a nudging in the back of their head, but it has never even made it out of your mouth yet? It hasn't even made it out. It's just been back here, and you've been having that argument back and forth. No, yes, can't do it. Yes, you can. No. So that's where my nudging was. It was back there. Had never come out of my mouth. So I'm in a session with Marilyn Powers about just kind of life and not totally feeling fulfilled and what direction am I going to take. And she looks at me and she says, you know what? You know what I think you should do? No, what? I think you should become a religious science minister. That was the little nudging that had been in the back of my head. And I said, what are you doing in there? What are you doing in my head? I have you say that to me sometimes. What are you doing in my head? Well, she was in my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So I said, yes, all right, I'll do it. And then an obstacle got put in my path. And I will not go into the gory details of that obstacle. Some of you or know that obstacle. But we had some challenges at the church that I was a part of, some significant challenges. And I left that church. Lonnie and I left. And it wasn't an easy leaving. It was a painful, painful time. And I left not only that church, I left my spiritual path. I wasn't sure about any of this business, and I certainly left the path of being a minister. I said, oh, thank you, no, that is not what I want. I let it go. There was an obstacle, and I said no. What I didn't know was that obstacle was just the universe sending me on a little detour so I could get on the right direction. Two things occurred over the next couple of years. First of all, Creative Living Fellowship wasn't even formed when all this happened. It wasn't even a glint in anyone's eye. Mary Jane Hyde, who's sitting right there, hadn't yet said, let's start our own church. But she eventually did say that, and this church was formed. So CLF wasn't even a thought when I had wanted to become a minister. So I had to wait for this church to be formed so I could do it here. That's the first thing that had to happen. The second thing I realized is that I was going through my first class of ministerial school, and I didn't know it. I was learning in that whole experience of wonderful things to do to be a minister, great things about being a minister, and the things to do. I was also getting an amazing lesson of what not to do. Amazing school of ministry that I didn't have to pay for. I didn't have to enroll in. I was just in it. That was what appeared to be a huge obstacle, which sent me absolutely in the right direction, in the right and perfect time for me to get my ministerial degree through a crazy way, which I will not even go into because that's a long story in a detail, but in a very unorthodox way to become the minister of CLF. And that was almost 21 years ago that happened. I can look back at that now and go, oh my gosh, that thing that seemed like such a huge, awful, horrible time. It was one of the most painful times of my life. It really was. Now I say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, because it was the best thing for me and for a number of folks that I'm seeing, those who are part of that whole experience are saying yes. So that's example number one of an obstacle that was just a detour, sending me personally in absolutely the perfect and right direction. The other one is a story about Lonnie that many of you have heard, but I don't know that you have heard all of it, because we've never actually quite spoken of all of it. But many of you have heard a lot of it. So in 2012, in the fall of 2012, my husband started not feeling good. And he continually went not feeling good, and we were checking this and this and this and looking at this, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And ultimately, after a bunch of journey, we learned that it was his heart. And that his heart was in bad shape, and he needed open heart surgery. Talk about an obstacle being thrown in front of you. Talk about the universe speaking to us in mysterious ways. What is this all about? We don't know. We don't know what this is all about. But the bottom line is he had to have open heart surgery, and in December of 2012, the theme, interestingly enough, the theme that I chose for that month was a December to remember. That was our theme in here. I had no idea how much of a December to remember it would be. And I didn't mean it in that way, but nonetheless, the end of the year, December of 2012, he had open heart surgery, a 9-hour surgery. He had 2 valves replaced, he had a triple bypass, and he had an aortic reconstruction. It was a huge surgery. There was a huge recovery time for that. In January, February, March, huge recovery. April, huge recovery time. In January of that year, he wasn't back at church yet, he was still at home. We had a woman whose name I can't remember, Marlise somebody. She came and did a workshop. I didn't come to her workshop, but I saw her before it, and she looked and she said, I need to tell you something. She said, I'm somewhat empathic. I went, okay. She said, your husband just had heart surgery, right? And I said, yes. She said, I have a message for you. Okay. She said, his heart won't heal until his heart heals. His heart won't heal until his heart heals. I didn't know what she meant. Kind of ticked me off, actually, to be honest with you. I'm like, get out of my face, get out of my business. I have to say, if I'm going to be honest about that, I was a little bit, you don't know what you're talking about, just get out of my face. But I didn't forget that she said that. I didn't take that home to him. He's in the throes of just trying to recover from that physical hell, which is why if anyone knows anyone who's ever had heart surgery or if you've ever had it, it is a physical hell for a while. And so he was still in the middle of that. I didn't mention that to him. And then time passed and I kind of forgot about it. Your heart won't heal until your heart heals. So he physically heals. 4 months or so, he starts going to physical therapy, heart rehab, and he's doing good, he's doing good. We move to August of 2013. We go to vacation. We're in Acapulco, having a great time, and he starts not feeling good. He starts having the same symptoms that he was having before that heart surgery. The same symptoms are happening. I think about it now, and it just it hits me again, right? It's like, oh no, again. Come home, the rest of the year, he's going downhill. He's back in the hospital. They do tests. And we find out that everything that they can do, they have done. They fixed the electricity, they say. We fixed the plumbing. We fixed everything we can fix. The only thing now that will save him is a heart transplant because his heart's so damaged. Your heart won't heal until your heart heals, she said. So I'm like, okay, let's get a heart transplant. And he's like, oh no, I will never go through an open heart surgery again. No. He's coming out of the test. He had an angiogram, and he's coming out of this grogginess, but the doctor has told him what I just said, you need a new heart. And he looks at me, fuzzy, and he says to me, I want to go see John of God. Now, for those of you who don't know who John of God is, he is a healer in Brazil. Now, my husband is conservative. He's not woo-woo. A healer in Brazil? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's just under the influence of drugs. He doesn't really mean that he wants to really do this. And besides, he can't. He can't even walk from the parking lot in the shopping center into the grocery store without getting winded and tired. How is he going to travel halfway across the damn world is what's going in my mind as he is saying, I want to go see John of God. So I think, he's going to forget that. That's the drugs speaking. But the drugs wear off, and he says to me, I'm going to go see John of God. I'm like, Lonnie. Okay. Long story short, he finds a trip like in the next month and off he goes. I'm not sure he'll make it, honestly. I'm not sure he'll make it. But he goes on his own. I didn't go. It was not mine to do. It was his to do alone. Your heart won't heal until your heart heals. He went there, and for the first time ever, he truly, deeply felt love. I watched his emails to me, which he wrote me about once a day. They had a little tiny snippet of email, of internet connection. He would write me emails. I watched his emails change as he wrote me, as he was telling me what was happening to him. The love that is in that little city, some of you have been, John, you've been, a couple others of you have been. The love that is in that city, just when you ride in the city in a little rickety truck that they take you in on, is palpable, he said. And yes, you know that. And Lonnie said, I knew I was loved. He said, Michele, I know you love me. I know the CLF congregation loves me. I know that friends love me, but I never really let it in until that experience. John of God healed his heart, so his heart could heal, and here he is, 5 years later, healthy as can be, having a great time reliving his Animal House experience. With a heart that the doctors still say doesn't function. Well, I don't care what the doctors say. His heart functions just fine because it healed. Was that a big obstacle? Oh, you bet. Was that a detour in the right direction? Oh, you bet. He would never have gone to John of God and had his emotional heart healed had he not had that pretty horrific physical experience. So I tell you this story for a couple of reasons. One is that I believe in, we don't all have to make the same mistakes, learn from others. So, I don't want you to have to go through something that dramatic. Use this example to help you heal whatever might need to be healed in you so that you can live your life fully. And to realize that sometimes even horrific detours, horrific obstacles are there to send us in the right direction. That the universe is speaking to us in ways we cannot understand, but it still is always speaking to us. So I want to tell you one more quick story here. But there has to be some true confession first. The two pieces of true confession. One is that I wasn't planning to tell you that story about Lonnie. I was not planning to. I thought of it, but I'm like, nah, we don't need to go that road. I just said no. My brain said no, not going to tell that story. All right? Second piece of confession is, I love the title of the chapter, The Universe Speaks in Mysterious Ways, in this book. I love that title, and I knew I wanted to speak on that. But up until the moment that I was getting ready to start crafting what I wanted to say, I hadn't read the chapter yet. No, I just knew there'd be good stuff in there. I just knew it. But I had not read the chapter yet. So I am going to turn to page 113, which is how this chapter begins. It says, the universe speaks in mysterious ways. What did I just tell you? I did not plan to tell you the story of John of God for Lonnie. This chapter begins, and I quote, in 2008, I went on a spiritual quest with my mother to Brazil to visit the medium John of God. You can look at the book if you don't believe me. See, right? No, yeah, right there. So the universe spoke to me and said, somebody needs to hear that story. Somebody needs to hear that story. So I don't know who it is, but I know one of you, at least, needed to hear that story. So my question for you this morning is, what would you do differently if you totally knew that the universe had your back? What would you do differently if you realized that every single obstacle that ever came your way was just a detour taking you in the perfect direction for your life? What would you do if you knew that that message you were getting or that thing that was happening that made no sense actually made a lot of sense? What would you do? I want to give you one quick tool to help you tap into and go deeper into letting the universe speak to you in those mysterious ways, to seeing obstacles as detours in the right direction. One thing, I've talked about it before, but you haven't listened, so I have to tell you again. I don't always listen, but I had to listen when Lonnie went to John of God. I had to listen when I wanted to, when I left ministry. I had to listen. I didn't know I was listening to this advice, but I was. And she talks about it. Bernstein talks about it in the book, and she simply says, we must let go of control of how we think the outcome is supposed to be. Breathe that in. We have to let go of control of how we think the outcome is supposed to be. Because when we're holding on to control, we don't give the universe any room to do what it's trying to do through us and for us and as us. So take a deep breath and close your eyes. I want us to go on a little letting go of control journey, if you will. And Pam, if you could give us some letting go of control music, that would be great. Just a couple of breaths. Deeply, deeply breathing. Let yourself relax in your seat. Feel your back supported. Use that as a symbol for the universe having your back. As you settle into this space, know that you are held, protected, and loved right here, right now. And if you have an area in your life that looks like an obstacle, or you have something going on that you don't understand. You don't get how it's the universe speaking to you in mysterious ways. If there is anything at all going on for you, just touch in right now and look and see if any place in you is wanting to control anything involved in that. Is there any place where you are wanting to control the outcome? Saying it needs to look like this. My guess is every one of us has something. And so as you identify that, as you connect with that, just allow yourself to be with it, to feel what comes up when you think about letting go of control. That could be scary. You could stomp your feet and say, but that's what I want. I know. Just allow those feelings. Just breathe deeply. And now in your mind's eye, begin to get a vision of a small golden basket placed in front of you. This basket is illuminated from the inside out. It's beautiful, it's vibrating, it's pulsating, it's inviting. And it is inviting you to place whatever it is that you are holding on to, whatever that control is. This beautiful, vibrant basket is inviting you to place that item of control in it. So offer it up fully and completely. I had to offer up my idea of being a minister. I offered that up and let it go. I had to offer up my husband and let him go. Although I certainly did want to control the outcome of both of those. So if I can do it, you can do it. Put that control in the basket right now. And then feel coming up from behind you. We're going to give the universe, the divine presence, an image right now. And it's just going to be the image of an angel. So coming up behind you is an angel with exquisite, soft, white wings. And he or she wraps you in those wings from behind. And in that moment, you know, in this moment, you know you are so safe and so supported and so incredibly loved. And then the angel unwraps its wings and takes the basket from your hand. And begins to fly upward, basket in hand. You have released this control to the universe. It is being taken care of. So just sit in this new energy for a moment. Breathe it. And then we offer this prayer of gratitude. Thank you, universe. Thank you, divine presence. Thank you, God, for helping me see every obstacle as an opportunity. I have let go of control and now let divine intelligence, wisdom, and a higher knowing lead the way. Regardless of how mysterious that way may be. I rest in this assurance. And with ease and with grace, I let it be.